Hello, everybody. Andre Khatchaturian here. Another episode of the Armenian Sports News Podcast alongside Jason Takhtadjian coming from Fresno, California. Jason, how are you today? Fresh off your 40 under 40 of Central California. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you guys, and thank you. I appreciate that. That was a pretty cool experience and honor to be named to the 40 under 40 for Central California. And then later on, I found out that I was the youngest person to be part of the class of 2024. So that's pretty cool. But it's time to move on and talk about some Armenian sports because there's quite a few things on the docket, especially in the world of the UFC.
Yeah, usually December is kind of slower month, but
Yeah,
we have obviously a lot of stuff going on. We're gonna cover it all. We'll Arman Tsarukyan, but we'll start with Arman Tsarukyan and Islam Makhachev. They had their first UFC 311 press conference. It took a long time for the UFC to officially announce this fight. Our own Manu Akopian obviously broke the fight, broke the report of the fight, and it wasn't really official by Dana White and the UFC until this past week. And immediately they had a press conference with the heavy hitters on that card, which Tsarukyan is obviously on the card, and with
yeah.
Makhachev, and then the co-main is also a pretty good one with Merab Dvalishvili and Umar Nurmagomedov. It's you got these two championship fights on the UFC 311 with four fighters representing the Caucasus, with
That's right.
Merab from Georgia, Tsarukyan from Armenia, and Umar and Islam from Chechnya. So the Caucasus is in Los Angeles, UFC 311. Hopefully, Jason, you will be there.
Hope
So
so.
press conference went well. There was not a lot of fireworks between Tsarukyan and Makhachev. They seemed very friendly with each other. There was a lot more fireworks between Merab and Umar. They were exchanging barbs the whole time, trash talking, and it was funny. The reporter even noticed that and asked Arman about it, and he said they're stealing the show tonight, but the main show is going to be me and Islam on January 18th. They did their little
Good
show.
answer.
They were both smiling at each other, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you could tell that they were both biting their lips when they were looking at each other in the face off. It seemed like they were buddy buddy, and obviously when it comes to Merab's fight, the co-main, there's been questions about him and his legitimacy. I don't know why he's a pretty solid fighter, but that's probably playing into Merab coming in with hot emotions. But obviously the star of the show is going to be Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukyan duking it out. It is quite the interesting evaluation, though, Andre. Don't you think that they did seem quite cordial with each other?
No, that's not that too surprising. You see it a lot with more often than not. That's what you see with in a championship fight. The ones you remember more are the Conor McGregor, you know, trash talking with someone and things of that nature, or maybe Colby Covington. And those are the more memorable ones. So people think they all always happen all the time. But these guys are friends. They respect each other. They fought against each other before. Tsarukyan's not a trash talker. He never has been. He has he's just there to do his business. Even with Oliveira, it was, Oliveira's the nicest guy in the sport, and you know, and that's fine. And I think that's an advantage for Tsarukyan because um, it's if I he doesn't have to worry about the mental game. A lot of times, whenever that rivalry happens with two fighters, then there isn't. It's the physical game, obviously, in the octagon, and then there's the whole mental game. Like, is that guy getting in my head? Things of that nature. Makhachev did make some comments during the press conference about how much Tsarukyan has changed over the years. He said that, to paraphrase, he said the only thing that's changed is he has more experience now. Otherwise, he's the same fighter, insinuating that you're going to see a similar result, especially now that Makhachev is the champion. I mean, maybe that's something that's bulletin board material, but again, I think there is no like hatred between these two, and that's okay.
Yeah. If anything, it's kind of nice to see. It's kind of nice to see, I would say.
I mean, most of these guys, Jason, they are the nicest guys in the world. Like these UFC fighters, you see it now and then. You saw John Jones in the last UFC fight. He and Stipe, they didn't. That was one of the biggest fights, and you only saw mutual respect from the two. And even Conor McGregor, I remember he fought Donald Cerrone a few years back, and there's only mutual respect between the two
That's
fighters.
right.
I think most of the time you see respect, but the ones you remember are the ones where they,
That are
get,
polarizing, right? That divide.
yeah, and obviously they try to sell the fight sometimes, and there's
Of course.
manufactured drama, but it's good we're not seeing that here. And it's obviously, what is it? It's December 7, um, early press conference. They'll obviously have another one on fight week, and
Of
we'll see
course.
the build up there. Makhachev joking that the fight was taking place in Armenia. He said Los
That's right.
Angeles is Armenia. And yeah, I think that's gonna play in favor for Tsarukyan. It's a home fight for him. Let's be honest here.
Yeah, I already know a lot of people that have messaged me personally telling me that they can't wait to see the fight in person, that they're getting their tickets, trying to get the pre-orders all in. So yeah, expectation is that the Intuit Dome is going to be filled up with a lot of Armenian flags and probably even more Armenians outside of the Intuit Dome waiting for possible celebrations.
Yeah, and that I have a lot of respect for Islam for taking the fight in Los Angeles because it is kind of like a road game for him. And there's obviously one or two fights every year that take place in the Arab world. There's a UFC fight night in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia on February 1. He could have said, no, I want to do it there. So I have the home crowd advantage. But he's kudos for kudos to Islam for taking this fight in LA, where there will be a big Tsarukyan crowd.
Yeah, I would say probably the next closest thing to a crowd in Yerevan, probably.
Well, for sure.
Yeah.
So that obviously is a month away. We're going to be talking about beating them the head until that fight. In case you're curious, Makhachev is a slight favorite, a betting favorite on DraftKings. So you will be getting value on Tsarukyan if you do bet on him. But let's move forward. Speaking of uh, international Armenian athletic superstars, Varazdat Lalayan is in action this week, just 4 short months after the Olympic Games, where he won a silver medal. He is going for gold now in the
Mhm.
2024 World Weightlifting Championships. So that is taking place right now in Bahrain, where it's going on until December the 15th. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here as I try to find more information on this tournament.
No
But
worries, but yeah,
Lalayan, Lalayan, he has a pretty good chance to win a gold medal here because the guy who always wins the gold medal in the heavyweight division, the largest division in the world weightlifting events, is Georgian legend Lasha Talakadze. And poor Varazdat has been finishing second place behind him for a very long time now. And this might be his shot now to get a gold medal.
absolutely. I think what was reported, it was that Talikadze is now pursuing politics in Georgia, so
Yes.
that's why he's not going to be able to be at this event. So really, this is Varazat's golden chance to win a world championship. Obviously, we also know that during the Olympics, who else finished on the podium was Gor Minasian, who's Armenian but representing Bahrain.
Yeah.
That's also going to be interesting, just considering where this tournament's happening between Gor Minasian and Varazat Lalayan, who's going to be able to outlift who, and that's going to be really fun to watch and see how that progresses. But
Absolutely.
that's the shining star of this championship.
Yeah, it makes it a lot more interesting with Talakatse out of the picture because Manasians also had the same fate as Lalayan, finishing second or third behind Talakatse throughout his career. Lalayan, he has never won a world championship. Second place finishes in 2021 and 2023. A third place finish in 2022. Obviously, the silver medal in Paris at the Olympics. He did win a European Championship in 2024 this past year. Uh, but again, Talakatse did not participate in that. And
Yeah.
there was a lot of success for Armenia at the European Weightlifting Championships. You had Gor Sahakyan win the gold in the 67 kilogram division. Gor will be competing in the 73 kilogram division in the World Weightlifting Championships. He will be competing December 9. That's something to look out for. He's one of the young weightlifters for Armenia. We didn't see at the Olympics, but he will try to make his mark at the world stage here. And let's see.
I mean, on top of that, you're not just Gorsahakin when we're talking about young Armenian weightlifters. Also, on the women's side, Alexandra Grigorian is also going to be competing in this tournament. She
Right.
wasn't
Yeah.
at the Olympics.
She won the gold medal at the European Championship as well,
Yep.
the 55 kilogram division, and she will be competing on December the 8th. That is on Sunday. We're recording this December 7th. So maybe Grigorian makes a name for herself and brings home the what a year would that be for her if she wins European gold and world gold? That would be unbelievable for her. And she's only, I think she was born in 2005, so she's only
Yeah, it would all
19
be
years
before
old.
20. Yeah,
Yeah,
all before she turns 20 years old. Just go figure. That'd be amazing.
absolutely. Maybe, we're going to be doing the ASN Athletes of the Year. Maybe she'll be the female athlete of the year. Who knows? We'll see what happens with that. You also have Makhachev-Tsarukyan. He also won European gold in the 96 kilogram division, and he will be competing in the 96 kilogram division in the World Weightlifting Championships on December 12th, alongside fellow Armenian David Hovhannisyan, who finished silver in the European. So these guys are all European champions now competing on the world stage. So these guys might be bringing home a lot of hardware for Armenia, from Hovhannisyan to Makhachev-Tsarukyan to Gorsahakian to Varazat Lalayan, Gor Manasyan. That's 5 names right there. And that's on the men's side. Obviously, we talked about Alexandra Grigorian. A lot to be excited about here amongst our Armenian weightlifters.
Yeah, I'm just counting. We have about what, 10 or 11 weightlifters. So if we had to do an over/under on how many medals Armenia is going to be able to collect, what would you set it at? I would say, I gotta say maybe 4.5, 5.5.
Medals, are we counting big medals or small medals? Because
Let's say, you know what? Let's say big medals.
yeah, because we already had an Armenian get a little medal. Garnik Cholakian, he got the bronze in only the snatch in the 61 kilogram division today, actually. So we're only counting the large medals, which is snatch and clean and jerk combined. I think Lalayan's gonna get one for sure. Uh, I'm gonna give Grigorian one as well, Alexander Grigorian, and one of Makhachev-Tsarukyan or Hovhannisyan will get. I would say that they have a good chance of getting 4. I think 4 is a
Yeah,
good number.
yeah.
But how did they do last time, Jason? Last World Championship. Let's see how they did. Whatever
Let's
they
see.
have, let's hope they top that. Last year in Riyadh, that's where the World Weightlifting Championship was. Armenia had only 2 medals, a silver and a bronze, in the World Weightlifting Championship. So European success does not necessarily mean that there's going to be world success, because you get all these Asian countries in East Asia, Uzbekistan, Indonesia, Thailand. They have a
China.
lot of really good weightlifters that dominate the sport. So we saw that during the Olympic Games, and
Yeah, I mean,
so
yeah,
let's don't
China
get
took
too
home.
excited because of the European goals.
That's right. The last World Championships, China alone took home 7 big gold medals. So
There you go.
yeah,
2022 World Weightlifting Championships. Let's look at it. Let's see how Armenia did here. Only 2 bronze medals, and one of
right.
those is always Varazat. And I think and the other one was Samvel Gasparian. Don't mistake the European success for automatic world success. But there are some things to be excited about, like the 19-year-old Alexandra Grigorian. It'll be interesting to see how she does in the world stage. And of course, some of these other guys who won gold in Europe, they could potentially, if you're winning gold and not just a bronze in Europe, maybe you're going to probably medal on the world stage. So we'll keep an eye out on that on ASN all throughout the week. And we'll talk about it next week on the podcast as well. We'll analyze some of the happenings coming out from Bahrain. Now from Bahrain, we go to Southern California. Back to Southern California. We started in LA, we went to Bahrain. Now we're back to LA, where we talk about the hottest young Armenian basketball prospect, Anto Balian. Jason, he committed to Pepperdine University this week. Looks like that recruitment process went really well, really quickly. He committed very quickly, and he's ready to be a wave.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty fun and exciting. Another Armenian who commits to a Division One NCAA basketball team. So it's going to be cool to also see him stay in Southern California for his collegiate basketball career. And just considering what he's doing right now, he's in the midst of his senior year at Pilibos right now. He's dropping 40 points back to back. He's putting up 35 points, leading his team in rebounding, assists, even getting like at least a block a game, playing on the defensive side. I'm kind of running out of words to describe this kid because, especially for Armenian talents, I mean, who do we compare him to?
Let's slow down. First of all, he's still in high school. He's still a kid.
Of course.
How many times do we see Armenian athletes get that hype and then they fall flat on their face? I think it's very exciting. I think Pepperdine's an amazing school, but let's not raise these expectations for the kid when, I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's fair to raise the expectations to a level that might be untenable. I think it's incredible that he's playing at Pepperdine. I think, you talk about when is the last Armenian player we've seen who's done this? We're looking at one right now in Nebraska with Connor Essegian playing at the collegiate level and doing a great job. So it'll be very exciting to see how he does in Pepperdine, and I think he's going to do great. It's also Pepperdine, it's not a blue blood. It's not one of those schools, but I think in this case, it's probably good because he is going to be able to get a lot of playing time and not just sit on the bench like we see some of these other guys, Evan Manjikian at UCLA, Avan Dorian at USC, who are just sitting on the bench, practicing with the team, not getting any playing time or experience. I'm sure Balian has sights set on the NBA, and that the only way to get better is if you keep playing and producing.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you completely. I don't really know what to add on that because I think you're absolutely right. I'm not trying to, set high expectations for the kid per se, but he's being noticed by a lot of people outside of even the Armenian community. And that for me is quite jarring, especially because he's been grown up within the Armenian community. You got guys like, Connor Essegian who are already in Nebraska. They're playing really well. They're putting up games with 5, 6 3-pointers made, 20-point performances. And we want to see more of that. And especially when we're seeing it in a place like Southern California. And on top of that, he's coming from an Armenian school too.
That is a big, yes, 100% coming from an Armenian school. That definitely interesting. There's another kid out of Mestropia, Khatchaturian, who's playing pretty well. Again, a lot of these younger Armenians, they grew up watching basketball, especially in the diaspora. And I think basketball has slowly become the number 2 sport in Armenia. And it's going to just be interesting to see over the next couple decades how many more basketball players will be produced with Armenian backgrounds. And again, the future's bright. I know they lost to Austria by 40 points. I think Rex Kalamian's post was a little unnecessary. Like, people know this is a work in progress. You don't need to what are you going to do when they lose again by 40 to another country? You're going to send another post out like that?
No need for the apology, honestly.
Yeah.
I think we're getting to the understanding, like you said. It's a new program. It's a new program, and the highs and the lows come with it, whether it's, friendlies in LA or those important games, those FIBA competitions that you're going to be going up against grown men that have chemistry with each other.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress.
I appreciate the accountability, but it's not necessary, especially this early. If anyone who needs to send a post like that on social media, it's the Armenian Football Federation.
Yep.
That terrible game against what country was it?
Faroe Islands. The Faroe Islands, man.
So speaking of soccer, I guess that was a good time to segue to go to Yerevan and look at how FC Noah is doing in the UEFA Conference League. Jason, how did they do last time?
Well, they had a little bit of an underwhelming performance, even though, any sort of point that they grab in the Conference League is supposed to be, something to look forward to. They played a team called Vikingur Reykjavik from Iceland. They hosted them in Yerevan, but they drew 0-0. So now Noah are in a situation where, they're tied with about 6 or 7 other teams for a spot in the playoff in the Conference League phase. But their next game is against Apoel Limassol, a team from Cyprus, one of the most successful teams in Cyprus. And that's one of 2 games. It's one of 2 games that they have left. It's a home game, like you said. And if they really want to make it into the playoffs, we talked about it a little bit earlier between us. They just need 1 win. I think they just need that one
win will get them into the playoff. They have a home match against Apoel. I keep wanting to call them Aperol Spritz, but Aperol of Cyprus. And then
Good
TSC,
sponsorship for them.
yeah, and then TSC of Serbia. That's a winnable game too, even though that's a road game. They get a win in one of these two, maybe even two draws. They will secure a spot in that top 24, I think, and go to the knockout phase of the playoffs. Regardless, it's they got a bad draw having to play Chelsea. That was just really unfortunate. It was
especially with the goal difference. The goal difference really messed it up big time.
I'm also giving Chelsea a little grievance, like not grievance, but some criticism here, I guess, because a gripe against Chelsea is, why are you in this tournament? Like, it's
because they performed poorly in the Premier League last season.
So bow out, let someone else come in. A lot of other European countries did not participate in this tournament. So I don't know. You don't have to.
No, well, you're not wrong. The point is that they performed really bad last year in the Premier League, and because of that, they earned like one of the last European competition spots.
I know why they're in the tournament. Why are you choosing to participate in this tournament is my question.
Okay.
Like, this is you're beating up on teams that you should be beating up on. Like, is that
what you're saying is why you're taking it seriously? Why you're playing your A team?
No, I'm saying respectfully decline the invitation to compete in the tournament because you're Chelsea and your goal is to play in the Champions League and win the Champions League, not even the Europa. This is the Conference League. Bow out and say we don't want to be a part of this tournament because it's beneath us. It is beneath them.
You're not wrong, and that would be headline worthy if they did that, because it's not often you hear about that ever.
Okay. Now we move to another sport that is growing in Armenia, and it's called lacrosse. Lacrosse is growing in Armenia thanks to the efforts of a fellow named Johnny Muradian. Johnny Muradian is a National Lacrosse League Hall of Famer, played in Canada and the United States in the lacrosse league, indoor lacrosse league. And he was a 9-time All-Star. He was one of the best lacrosse players in the world in the 90s and the 2000s. And he's a Canadian Armenian. And he said, ever since he was young, his goal was to bring lacrosse to Armenia. And he's brought it there. He's brought the sport there. Because of him, they have lacrosse clinics in Armenia now. And he's also was able to assemble a team, we discussed this before, of diasporan Armenians who went and competed in a small tournament in Europe, and they finished second place. But most importantly, he accomplished his biggest goal of getting Armenia into the European Lacrosse Federation. They got acceptance, and also they're going to very shortly get acceptance into World Lacrosse. And they'll be the 93rd country to have admittance to World Lacrosse. And they have big goals. The 2028 Summer Olympics are in Los Angeles. Lacrosse will be an Olympic sport. And his goal is to qualify for that Olympic team. I spoke with Johnny and one of the Armenian lacrosse players, Nick Palangian. They talked about that tournament. And they talked about how important it is that Armenia was able to get acceptance into World Lacrosse.
To be able to be connected with our homeland, and we all have grandparents and stuff that the history is closer to. You can really kind of feel the heaviness, and it makes it's one of those moments where life kind of sorts itself out before your eyes, and you see kind of what's important. And this is one of those things that it's both the sport that we love and also some special, intense connection with our relatives and the homeland and all of that.
I think that's very well said. And I think the social impact that everybody now that's involved with lacrosse is part of making a social impact in Armenia, which, as you and I discussed, Andre, a lot of people in the diaspora really want to roll up their sleeves and make a social impact. So if we win some lacrosse games at the international level, that's going to get a kid or a young girl in Armenia that goes, wow, that team of girls won, that men's team won. And that's the social impact.
Mm-hmm.
Jason, he's absolutely right. He talks about the social impact, what this is going to mean for Armenia You see, the young children seeing this Armenian lacrosse team succeed in an international stage. It motivates them to want to pick up a lacrosse stick, play the sport, and it helps grow the sport in Armenia and in the diaspora.
Absolutely. I mean, both in Armenia, in the diaspora, it's a sport that, we know is pretty popular in the United States, especially on the East Coast, and is growing rapidly, I would say, because we do see lacrosse leagues now popping up in this country too. And it's really cool to see Armenians, both in the diaspora, but especially in Armenia, getting involved in a sport that traditionally, let's say, maybe 10, 20 years ago, who would have ever talked about the sport of lacrosse in Armenia? But now we're seeing a lot more interest, a lot more people putting their, interests together throughout the diaspora, let's say. Because I really liked some of the conversation that you had with Nick, and him just explaining what it really meant to these players who had never played with each other, met up in Greece, and once they finished second, the wave of emotions that took over them, and them just celebrating with tears in their eyes. It was really, really heartwarming to hear that. And it's we're at the infancy of this, like you've mentioned, and it's really cool to see it and where it's possibly going to go.
Absolutely. I think heartwarming is the right word. And I think I felt proud talking to those two gentlemen. And you can watch the whole interview on ASN's YouTube page. But I would say proud also because when you think about it, 10 years ago, the only national team that existed of relevance in like a big time sport was the Armenian soccer team, the Armenian national football team. And now as we head to 2025, the basketball team is in business, very popular around the world. The hockey team is making its comeback at the World Championships in 2025, and they're hosting the tournament too. And then now this lacrosse team getting admission. I keep saying admittance. I think admission's the correct word. What is wrong with me today, Jason? Getting admission into World Lacrosse. Now they're going to be able to participate in international World Championship tournaments and have a chance to qualify for the Olympics. That's a fourth national team now, and we've talked to some people who are trying to establish a baseball team and a softball team, and it's really exciting to see this Armenian team sports grow, because Armenians have always been good in the individual sports. They've won Olympic gold medals, wrestling and in weightlifting and boxing, and you think of even in professional sports, you think of MMA fighters, you think of tennis players. Things of that nature. You really don't look at team sports, and now Armenia has a presence in that.
Yeah, it's growing. It's actually growing, and it's quite beautiful to see, because again, we haven't seen this before in Armenia. Like you said, all the individual athletes, getting the success, but now we're being able to talk about these team sports, whether they're club competitions, Armenian, national team competitions, or whatever it may be. Because like we just talked about FC Noah, for example. When was the last time an Armenian club team was relevant on this stage? Probably 1973. Okay, we're talking about like Ararat, Armenia. It's really cool to see this come together, especially for sports like lacrosse, and even in the future maybe baseball, softball too. Other sports that are going to be growing for Armenia.
Oh, for sure, and it's exciting to see, and we'll obviously keep track of them now. It's just making
the
our
Olympics
here, Jason. We have
the Olympics, LA 28. That would be an amazing thing
to have Armenia there in Los Angeles. It'll be the first team sport for Armenia in an Olympic Games. And who would have thought it would have been lacrosse? I would have always thought it would have been, I don't know, maybe basketball, but even that.
I would have thought it would have been soccer. They have the soccer tournaments in the Summer Olympics, and Armenia have enough players, especially in the youth ranks, to maybe submit a team. They just never have been able to, whether it's for costs or just not getting admittance. I'm not sure.
Admittance. I guess that's going to be the debate today. Admittance versus admission. But Jason, I think we're out of time here. Also, one quick note, speaking of the World Weightlifting Championship, the 2027 edition of it will be in Armenia. That's another big thing. Like, Armenia is hosting these big events. It's exciting. Who knows, if Tsarukyan wins this UFC belt, maybe they bring there's a UFC card in Yerevan one day. How amazing
that would be crazy.
We'll see. I remember talking to Gegard Mousasi about that too, and he said that would never happen because of the logistics. But who knows? Dana White has done so many different things in his career as UFC president. put fights in crazy places. Who knows?
On an island in a sphere, next it's gonna be in space. Who knows? I mean, he can do it in Armenia. It's come on, we can make it.
Believe in Dana White, but I think Tsarukyan's got to win a belt first before that happens. Just think about that for a second. Sorry, I want to wrap up. Now I'm thinking about UFC Armenia and who would be on that card. That would be an
Oh wow. Well, you got to think, obviously, you know, guys like Isaac Bulgarian have to be there. That'd be amazing for a guy like him. Obviously, Chookagian, exactly. You got to have
her. Armenian Sports will go get another unanimous decision loss. And then
maybe Mousasi signs a 1-fight contract with the UFC, comes back, fights somebody like a Donald Cerrone.
Maybe he'll makes his comeback.
I love this. Maybe somebody who's a wrestler turns into a UFC fighter, like I don't know, Arthur Alexanian?
No, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking more so the big dude, high school kid. He wants to fight in the UFC.
Nico Sarhakian.
Yeah. Who knows? We'll see. Anyway, we are almost out of time. The Zoom is going to kick us out. Thank you so much for joining us. ASN Podcast. We'll see you next week.